Within the next 5 years, millions of people will quietly lose their jobs, not because they failed, but because the world changed faster than they did. The real question is, will you adapt in time or become part of the workforce that gets replaced? For the first time in modern history, a handful of individuals can perform work that once required entire teams. Research indicates that a significant portion of entry-level white-collar roles is already at risk. Traditional pathways to wealth, stable employment, real estate, long-term investing aren't disappearing overnight, but they're becoming harder to access and far more expensive to enter. This isn't speculation, it's already unfolding, and the pace of change is accelerating faster than most people recognize. Four economic forces are converging right now that are reshaping the entire landscape of wealth creation. First, we're seeing winner-take-most dynamics take hold. AI enables fewer people and companies to generate exponentially more output with significantly smaller teams. Meta recently reported that individual employees now produce the equivalent output of 20 workers, a staggering shift in productivity that would have been unimaginable just a few years ago. The CEO of Anthropic predicts AI could displace half of all entry-level white-collar positions within 5 years, potentially creating a low-wage underclass of workers who struggle to compete with automated systems. Microsoft research shows that many highly educated roles are among the most vulnerable to this transformation. Bill Gates estimates that within a decade, humans won't be needed for most tasks, a prediction that sounds extreme but is backed by the rapid advancement we're witnessing in real time. What this means in practical terms is that instead of large groups of people collectively benefiting from increased output, ownership and wealth could begin to concentrate even more dramatically. We could see a scenario where the top 1% owns significantly more than the other 99% combined. This creates a much more pronounced economy where those who have assets see enormous gains, while those who sell their labor see lower wages and increased competition from both AI systems and other workers fighting for fewer positions. Second, we're experiencing the privatization of wealth on a massive scale. The number of publicly traded companies in the United States has plummeted over the past few decades. Most early-stage growth now happens behind closed doors through venture capital and private equity funding. What this means for the average person is that by the time they can actually invest in these companies, by the time these businesses go public and become available on stock exchanges, they're already valued at $100 billion or more. These are no longer the 100x growth opportunities that earlier generations had access to. The massive wealth creation has already happened, captured by insiders, institutional investors, and accredited investors who had access from the beginning. Third, we're facing a housing affordability collapse that's unprecedented in modern history. What was once the most reliable wealth-building tool for the middle class, home ownership, is now at its worst affordability level on record. This isn't just about high prices, it's about an entire generation being priced out of the asset that historically allowed families to build generational wealth. Access to home ownership, the ladder that millions climbed for decades, is slipping out of reach for more and more people. This means that if you're not already ahead, if you haven't already gotten into the housing market or built up significant assets, it becomes exponentially harder to catch up in the future. Fourth, there's the AI performance gap that's emerging rapidly. A massive divide is forming between those who actively adopt AI tools and integrate them into their work, and those who ignore the technology or dismiss it as hype. Workers who leverage AI to double or triple their output will see higher incomes, more job opportunities, and significantly more investable cash to put toward building wealth. Those who resist or delay learning these tools will eventually find themselves replaced by someone who doesn't hesitate. The advantage right now belongs to early adopters, but that window is closing as AI literacy becomes the baseline expectation rather than a competitive edge. Understanding the historical context here is crucial. Since the 1980s, wages and productivity have moved in opposite directions, in what economists call the Great Decoupling. Worker productivity in the US rose roughly 81% over several decades, while average hourly compensation climbed only 30%. So where did all that extra value go? The difference flowed primarily to corporate profits, stock ownership, and executive pay. Those at the very top captured the vast majority of income and productivity gains, largely because many jobs could be easily outsourced or automated. AI is accelerating this trend dramatically. As machines and algorithms handle more cognitive tasks, employers will have less incentive to hire and train human workers from the bottom up. The traditional model of trading time for money, showing up, putting in hours, and expecting steady wage growth is becoming less viable with each passing year. However, this creates a paradox, because AI also dramatically lowers the barrier to entry for creators, builders, and entrepreneurs. A solo entrepreneur or small team can now accomplish what once required dozens of people and hundreds of thousands of dollars in capital, often for close to nothing. That advantage won't last forever, though. Once AI becomes standard across all industries and every company adopts these tools, the early mover window closes completely. At that point, you're no longer ahead of the curve. You're just keeping pace. This pattern isn't entirely new, and understanding historical precedent helps put things in perspective. This isn't the first time technology has triggered widespread panic about job displacement. In the early 1900s, roughly 40% of Americans worked in agriculture. Then came tractors, fertilizers, and mechanization. The result? Today, only 2% of the workforce is in farming. Yet food is cheaper, more abundant, and more accessible than ever before. Millions of jobs emerged in manufacturing, logistics, food processing, and retail. The automobile provides another example. It eliminated entire professions: blacksmiths, carriage makers, horse breeders, but simultaneously created mechanics, car dealerships, highway construction, insurance industries, tourism, and yes, even personal injury attorneys. Every major technological shift in history has generated more jobs than it destroyed, not fewer. But here's the critical distinction with AI. The question isn't whether new jobs will emerge. History suggests they will. The real question is, who will capture the upside when this transformation happens? Will the benefits be distributed broadly, or will they concentrate in the hands of those who already own assets, those who control the AI systems, and those who position themselves early? That's the fundamental issue we're facing, and why timing matters so much right now. So what can you actually do about this? Here are 5 strategic moves that can position you to benefit rather than get left behind. First, master new skills actively and intentionally. It's estimated that half of all workers will need significant reskilling by the end of this decade just to stay relevant in their fields. Beyond general skills, learn specifically how to use AI tools to amplify your own productivity. Even a basic level understanding of these technologies will have a massive compounding effect throughout the rest of your career. The advantage you have right now is that everything you need to know is available online, instantly, and often completely free. There's no excuse for not starting today. Second, diversify your income streams beyond a single paycheck. Micro-entrepreneurship is expected to surge by 2030, and that's the concept of solo operators working from home, often around their own schedule, who can build steady income streams within very niche markets. This doesn't mean quitting your job tomorrow. It means gradually building additional revenue sources outside your main employment. Whether that's freelancing, consulting, creating digital products, or offering specialized services, the goal is to not be entirely dependent on one employer or one source of income. Multiple income streams create resilience and opportunity. Third, and this is perhaps the most important, convert income into ownership consistently. Throughout every past economic disruption, workers who invested their earnings and built ownership in assets pulled ahead financially. Those who stayed wage-dependent and never accumulated assets fell further behind. This means actively diversifying across index funds, individual stocks, real estate properties, business equity, or even precious metals if the price makes sense. The purpose of using AI to boost your income isn't just to earn more money to spend, it's to generate more investable capital that you can deploy into assets you control. Ownership is what separates those who build lasting wealth from those who simply earn and spend. Fourth, reduce unnecessary fixed expenses and build financial resilience. Throughout history, the most vulnerable people in any economic transition are those with high debt loads, high fixed costs, and absolutely zero margin for error. If you're a few paychecks away from everything falling apart financially, it's worth taking the time now to cut everything you don't genuinely need. Track every expense carefully. Identify where money is leaking out of your budget. Save enough to build a 3 to 6 month emergency fund that gives you breathing room. Financial cushion isn't just about security. It creates strategic flexibility to take calculated risks and seize opportunities when they appear. Fifth, develop deep focus as a skill and competitive advantage. This might sound surprising, but this is the first time in years that focus itself has become a rare and valuable asset. The ability to sit in a room undistracted for 4 hours without constantly checking your phone puts you ahead of 99.9% of people. Most individuals can't sustain attention for even 30 minutes without interruption. Combine deep focus with showing up consistently, being attentive to detail, and continuously learning, and suddenly it becomes remarkably easy to get ahead of practically everyone else. These aren't complicated skills, but they're increasingly rare in a world designed for distraction. Now, it's important to acknowledge that this picture isn't entirely bleak. There's another perspective worth considering. Peter Diamandis argues that we're shifting from an economics of scarcity to an economics of abundance. AI and humanoid robotics can produce goods, services, healthcare, and education at costs approaching zero. When production costs collapse, that value creation can either flow entirely to shareholders and business owners, or it can be partially redistributed throughout society. There's a very real scenario where AI produces so much abundance that prices collapse across the board. Your money suddenly buys far more than it does today. Labor becomes incredibly cheap or even free through automation. The baseline standard of human existence gets elevated without anyone needing to work more hours. Even the poorest families today have access to technologies and conveniences that the richest people 500 years ago could only dream of: smartphones, air conditioning, instant communication, abundant food. Elon Musk echoes this perspective. He stated that as long as the output of goods and services exceeds the money supply, which AI and robotics will enable at massive scale, the economic system remains fundamentally stable. There won't be runaway inflation or collapse. Instead, we get more production, more abundance, and potentially more prosperity distributed more widely. So this doesn't necessarily end in some dystopian scenario or a collapse where nobody works and everything falls apart. Instead, the more realistic outcome looks something like this. AI dramatically increases productivity, but it redistributes exactly who's able to capture the benefits of that productivity. Prices could come down significantly. Productivity might explode across every sector. The standard of living could increase for most people. But ownership, having equity, having assets, having stakes in businesses and property, that will matter more than ever before. Those who own will benefit massively. Those who only earn wages will struggle to keep up. That's where this entire conversation comes full circle. The 5-year window isn't a countdown to failure or some arbitrary deadline. It's a head start. It's the period where skills can still compound before they become table stakes. It's when income can scale before competition catches up. It's when being early still provides massive advantages over being perfect. Eventually, this transition will stabilize. AI will be everywhere. Every company will use it. Every worker will be expected to know it. The early adopter advantage will completely disappear. But we're not quite there yet. Right now, today, there's still a window. There's still an opportunity to position yourself on the right side of this transformation. The way to think about this is simple. AI doesn't eliminate opportunity. It just raises the cost of waiting. Every month you delay learning these tools, every year you put off building additional income streams, every decision to stay comfortable instead of adapting, that delay compounds against you. The gap between those who act now and those who wait widens with every passing quarter. This isn't about fear. It's about recognizing a genuine inflection point in economic history and responding accordingly. 5 years is enough time to build something meaningful, to develop valuable skills, to accumulate your first significant assets, to position yourself for the abundance that's coming. But only if you start now.